Hi everybody, welcome back to another ASUS ROG Ally video, and in this one we're taking a look at how Sniper Elite 5 runs on this amazing little Windows handheld gaming device. I can already tell you, I'm pretty amazed even just starting off. I'm also going to give you a little bit of advice about whether this is a good game to play and why you might like it, and then we're going to kind of wander around, and I've chosen one of the more impressive levels as well, just to test out the ROG Ally. Now remember, the version of the ROG Ally that ASUS have lent me to play around with for the last few weeks is the non-extreme version. But what I found is that if you set this to 720p, you get really good performance. And also, yesterday at the time of recording this video anyway, we had an update to the AMD graphics drivers on the ROG Ally, which gave us AMD's fluid motion frames technology, which I have got turned on now. And what that enables you to do is that the graphics driver inserts frames in between the frames that the game is rendering, meaning that you get a higher frame rate and smoother gameplay as well. And so far, I've got to say, I've been pretty impressed. So we're running at 720p. We've got the screen set to 120 hertz. We're running at medium settings because I think that's all you really need in most handheld games. You don't need high because you don't notice any difference in affects performance. And we're getting, obviously I'm not moving around now, there's no enemies in sight, but we're getting sort of 60 frames per second. I mean, it will drop down as we go into different areas. And this is really impressive. And the thing I really like about this is that with frame generation, rather than upscaling, you don't get that loss of detail that you get with upscaling. So generally what happens with upscaling is the way that it works is that the game, instead of rendering at the native resolution of the screen, say in this case 720p, the game renders at 600p, so it can render faster. And then the graphics driver then upscales the image, it makes it bigger using special algorithms, which means that you get a better performance. But in my experience, in most cases, that does lead to a degradation of quality. And so, for example, with the AMD Z1 non-extreme version, like you see here, what I like to do is I don't have FSR turned on, or I don't know what ASUS call it, RSR, don't they? I don't bother turning it on because I also think that the graphical power that is used to power the upscaling is better off used in the game and letting the game use that power. But what appears to be happening with AMD's fluid motion frames is that you're not having to rob Peter to pay Paul as much. It seems to be a more effective way of improving of the performance of games. Hello. There we go. We're going to be in for it now, and this looks and is running very smoothly indeed. Now, I know it's always difficult to watch these because I'm recording it on a mobile phone I think it's recording at 30 frames a second. You're watching on a mobile phone probably that may be running at 30 frames a second. And the other thing I would say is, for some reason, Rebellion, with all of their games, I'm not sure what sharpening technique they use, but they always look a little bit over-sharpened, their games, to me. And I always think their gun sounds as well aren't the best either. So if it sounds a little bit tinny, it's not you. It's the game itself. So Sniper Elite 5 itself, if you're thinking about buying it to play on your Z1 ROG Ally or your Steam Deck or anything like that, is an absolutely fantastic. In my opinion, it's probably the best Sniper Elite because it brings together big open. Wrong button. Brings together. Where can we look at the map? There we go. It brings together these really big open maps where you can choose to do the objectives in whichever order you want to. It also brings in the ideas of starting at different places once you've unlocked a map and you've finished it, which is very, very cool. And the maps aren't too big. Sniper Elite 4 kind of, I think, suffered sometimes from you would wander around and you'd end up doing things in the wrong order. It's also set back in France just after D-Day, so it's in a really good World War II location and time. But probably best of all, they've solved the close quarters combat problem that. Ooh. I'm going to die here. Yeah. They solved the close quarters combat problem. Let's use a revive kit. With a kind of a radar system. Now, that's going to sound really crap. See if we can get out of it before we die. Okay, so we're probably going to... Oh, we can still revive. Okay, so we're going to... So, the problem always used to be with Sniper Elite is that it's really good as a sniper game, as you'd expect, when you're wandering around and you're engaging enemies at distance. In fact, I tell you what, let's... Show to restart, no. Return to main menu. Are you sure? Yes. Let's load in different... We'll load in a different level in a second. And so, you know, when you're engaging enemies at medium to long distance, really good fun. Absolutely fantastic. But the problem would be when you would then get in close to people. I'm going to start over here. When you would then get close, it would become very difficult, especially if you're in an urban area. Say you're creeping around a house, you wouldn't know if somebody was round the corner. And that would lead to these situations where you'd be very careful. You'd be creeping around, doing all this stealthy stuff, trying to avoid enemies, and you would come around a corner, and there would be a guard there, and who happened to be looking in your direction, and that would be it. You know, he would see you. You would end up shooting. The alarms would be set, and then you're into kind of a shooter. But what you can do now, and you've got to kind of suspend the believability of this a little bit until you've used a lot, is that you can hold in right stick. And what happens, the way I think of this is when you're in this mode, and you've got to be quiet when this is happening, when you're in this mode, Carl, who's the main character, what he's doing, he's listening really carefully. And so what the game is then giving you is on the screen a 3D representation of where enemies are. So if you think about it, if you were creeping around a chateau in France, and there was German guards wandering around, clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. You know, you could just stand still and hear, and you would know where they were, wouldn't you? You'd have a really good idea of where they were. And that's what this does, but it shows you where they are as well. So it's a little bit like X-ray vision. And you might go, oh, no, that doesn't belong in Sniper Elite. But honestly, give it a go, because it transforms close quarters combat. It means that you can creep around the towns and urban areas and have fun killing the enemies in a way that you just couldn't do in earlier Sniper Elites, because you'd end up bumping into them and getting into firefights and coming out of the stealth gameplay mode far too early. So for me, I really think this is probably, you know, the best Sniper Elite, and of course it's got the best graphics. And this is a great example, this level here. In fact, if I can remember the controls, can I remember the controls? There we go. Let's get up and look at this. Look at this level. Absolutely amazing, this level. So we've got to make... Well, if we were playing through the whole level in this gameplay demonstration, we would have to go all the way over to there. You know, fight our way through. Or generally, you know, be sneaky. I mean, I've probably had more stealth kills in this version of Sniper Elite than any of the others, because it's really enjoyable as well. And then when things go wrong, you end up in firefights. And as long as you haven't got it set on the super hard level, you know, eventually, no matter how many Germans you kill, the alarm does end up getting switched off, and they all kind of go, well, there we go, that was a bit odd, what was going on there? And you can get back to enjoying the level. But this looks absolutely fantastic, and it's running so well. I mean, look at these frame rates, 80 frames a second on a ROG Ally non-extreme. And remember, you used to be able to buy, at Best Buy, the ROG Ally Z1, they would put it on offer at $300 in the States. Now, I'm not sure if you can buy this in the UK anymore. You can just get the extreme version. But if the non-extreme version does become available, and you're in the market for a handheld Windows 11 PC rather than the Linux-based Steam Deck, then it may be worth thinking about if you can get it, for a real bargain. The Z1 Extreme version, the full price is $600, which I think is a little bit too expensive, really. It needs to be cheaper than that. But if you could pick one up for, say, £400, all of a sudden it becomes a really viable option. The only thing that really lets these Z1 down, the ROG Ally, and this goes for all of the Windows handheld game PCs, is just battery life, because Windows 11 just isn't optimized for battery life in the same way that the SteamOS, the Linux-based SteamOS on the Steam Deck is, which is a shame. But obviously you can't play Game Pass games easily natively on a Steam Deck, whereas this is the Game Pass version of Sniper Elite that I'm playing here. So there we go. Sniper Elite 5 runs beautifully and looks great on the ROG Ally, even the non-extreme version here, especially if, as in this case, you enable AMD's fluid motion frames, which gives you better FPS and smoother gameplay without having to sacrifice any quality as well. So it's a great game to play. You should definitely think about buying it, and it runs great. Okay, so hopefully this video has been useful. If it has been, hit like if you want to see more of the same, press subscribe, and I will of course see you again soon.